Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of October 7th to October 13th. Now, we're coming off an eclipse week. We're coming off a week that transit wise was not incredibly heavy, but the internal energy, the emotions flooding to the surface were a necessary moment for us to recognize our insecurities, recognize the things that have been holding us back, recognize where we need to release and purge and let things go so we can take steps into a new direction. Now, one of the things I said about last week is that we needed to recognize things, we needed to see things, and we needed to have certain conversations. And for many of us, you did exactly what I said. You were calm. You said how you felt. You stated the facts. You cleared whatever was weighing on your conscience. And then the other side reacted. And I expected the reactions. And if you listen to just the intro of last week's episode, I talked about there would be these floods of emotions that came up to the surface. And we've been seeing these little bubbles and boils of things just popping up at different times, but we hit a different energy with it last week. Some people, you had the simple, easy conversation. I want to go in this other direction. I want to do something differently. I don't want to be in this situation. I do want to do this thing. And we were able to come to terms with things that brought us peace to our hearts. However, for some of you, you had to recognize the thing that you are letting go of. And for some of you, you did let go of things last week. But for others, it's going to be more in this week and next week. We're going to talk about this week first. There are changes that are going on this week. Two planets will switch directions, two of them. The first one is Jupiter. Jupiter has been slowing down and turning very stagnant and starting to station. I've said for a while that there will be some of these conversations where you start talking to somebody and you feel a hesitancy. You notice something isn't quite the same. And there's some level of support that is starting to turn away. And I've said that's starting to build into the vibration. And as we get closer to Jupiter's actual turning of retrograde, we're going to see it more and more. I can't help you. I can't support you. I can't do this. I'm not able to give you my time. I can't share this responsibility. I'm not able to do this thing. I don't believe what you believe. Jupiter's learning more while being in Gemini. It's hearing more while being in Gemini. And the outside perspectives, the higher frequency in the knowledge, in the volume that's starting to seep through, it's making us recognize an area where we need to pump the brakes. Now, Jupiter is the doctor, it's the guru, it's the teacher. For some of you, you literally have the medical things. And over the last few weeks, I was very clear. Whenever we start to have a lot more conjunctions with the South Node, we can become very aware of things in the body. And you can have those little moments where you're talking to the doctor and the doctor says, yeah, you need to change your diet or else you need to do this or else we have to do a surgery. There's no choice. For other people, it's been more along the lines of, I can't handle this care for you anymore. You have to go to a specialist. It's not just indigestion. You need to go to the gastro doctor. You need to go to a nephrologist. You need to do this thing that's beyond my scope. And we're seeing this turn and pivot where it comes to where we once had support, where we once had care, where we once felt some level of hope. It's starting to turn in a different direction. We do not have the same level of support And for some of you, that's even a financial support given what Jupiter rules. But there's another planet this week that is also changing directions, and it's going to happen 2 days after Jupiter turns retrograde. And that's Pluto. Pluto turns direct this week. We're halfway through Pluto's unfinished business in Capricorn. And there has been a lot of unfinished business that has been brought to the surface for everybody. For some people, it was a physical, unfinished business between you and another person, something that needed to change, something that needed to be altered, an old way of doing things, an old mindset, an old situation that we needed to physically deal with. But for others, it was internal energy, something that we needed to let go of, emotions that we needed to let go of, past traumas that had been holding us back, and that, again, we needed to let go of. And for some of you, you've had the floods of those old memories and those old emotions and that old thing just coming back to the surface, making you relive certain things, making you revisit certain things. And there could have been a physical event too, going back to your hometown, going back to your family home, that once you're in that area, it suddenly brings up all those memories that you have suppressed. But now this week, when Pluto turns direct, I don't think suppression is something that can remain. We have to take steps to make a change, to end a power struggle, to overcome the thing that's holding us back. Because again, so much of the recent energy has made us identify what is holding us back. Now we have to take the waves of taking back our power, taking back our strength, of turning a point of trauma and frustration into something where we have more control of the situation at hand. Now, for some of you, if you are going through situations with narcissists, with people that have to have some kind of control, that over the last few weeks, whenever we've gone through everything, you tell them that you want a divorce, that you want to break up, that you're not doing this anymore. Their emotional reactions are cartoonishly off the scale compared to what was just said to them. Because sometimes people have to act like something is bigger than what it is. And we've all been in these situations where we've seen that out of another person. They are not going to like you finding your strength again. But Pluto turning direct feels exactly like that. Finding strength again, letting go of the past, not allowing someone to have some level of control over our lives, over our money, over our business, over our stuff anymore. It's turning something around. We have turnarounds in the energy this week. Some will lose support. Others will gain their strength. And that's a big part of the vibration with the duality in the turns. By going back over the unfinished business, by finding out the things from the past, that unresolved energy, it's put something back into perspective. For some of you, it was an old thing that we had actually forgotten about, we had discarded, we let it go. But now that it's come back in front of us, we're seeing just how big and how weighted that moment was, and how much it's actually impacted us, even though we didn't recognize the impact. Something is shifting. And an area that once held power over us, whether it's a physical situation or an internal situation, will no longer have the same kind of power. It's time to take power back. And that takes me into the next part of this little intro. we need to talk about the building energy. Now, if you listen to the month ahead forecast and you listen to me whenever I got into the charts, I clearly state that there's an energy that builds up that starts around the 8th that continues all the way into the 20th. And every day this week has a building energy involved. And for some of us, we are building a momentum for a challenge that we wish to go through, overcome, take steps towards, an opportunity that we wish to take, a business that we wish to step into. But others are going to be feeling a sense of aggression or frustration, an emotional response that clears an indecisiveness, that makes us aware even more why withdrawal and overcoming the past is necessary. And that's because of the building square between Mars and the Sun and the building trine between Jupiter and the Sun. And by the end of the week, one of those two will go exact. So specifically, the trine between the Sun and Jupiter will be the most exact come Sunday evening. The next day, literally within a few hours, but for me, based off time, we will go into the exact square between Mars and the Sun. Now, really, this is happening very simultaneously. It's a few hours apart with the exactness. And for some people, what I start to describe in the buildup of the energy will take place this week. It'll take place Saturday and Sunday. For other people, it's going to be Monday, Tuesday of the next week. For even more people, it's going to be the whole thing. It'll be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. But we're not focused on that Monday, Tuesday. We're going to be focused on this week, Saturday and Sunday. Now, when the Sun comes into a square from Mars, in this case, Mars is in the higher authority. Mars will be hosting the North Node, hosting Venus, and by that time, hosting Mercury. Well, Mercury is hosting Jupiter, and Jupiter has also just turned retrograde. There is an awareness of why withdrawal has been necessary. There is an awareness why something isn't working anymore. And that awareness is going to create tension for many, many people. And it's going to create challenges for many, many people. It is going to put something in perspective that really illuminates where tension is going to grow and rise and continue. And we are moving into an energy over the next 2 weeks that has tension, frustration, arguments. And I think part of that is very curious compared to where we've already been. Last week, yes, there was an eclipse. I'm not denying the eclipse, but the other transits around the eclipse, there wasn't an intensity. Not until we got closer to the end of the week. But in the middle of the week, there wasn't an intensity. People chose to lose their shit, to let the energy grab them and make something bigger than what it needed to be. And I will admit, like, there are times, like being in an actual grocery store, it looked like grown adults were toddlers. And that's terrifying. That's terrifying because I have to put something in perspective for the people that listen to me. If people don't have control of their emotions now, right now, how are they going to behave later? And why am I saying that? Mars is in Cancer. And as of now, last week going into this week, Mars is in shadow. But Mars is direct. Now, what do I mean by shadow? The things that we're starting right now, the tensions that are happening right now, they are necessary. And they are setting the stage for many of the things that we will start to deal with in the Mars retrograde. but most specifically, the second half of the Mars retrograde. There will be layers to the decisions that we make, the challenges that we take on, the fights that we start to have, the tension, the frustration, the aggression, the pull towards getting our personal power back. There will be layers to it. Because in some way, shape, or form, the things that we're doing right now, we will be coming back to them in springtime. But right now, Mars is direct. Imagine how people are going to behave when Mars is retrograde in Cancer. Retrograde. Technically speaking, the retrogrades are more volatile, more frustrating, more violent. People are not thinking clearly. And if we're already having little volcano emotional eruptions right now, what's going to happen in January and February? If you are struggling with your emotions right now, how are you going to handle January and February when it is arguably going to be worse? I want to put that little seed in people's minds because for some people, what we have to do after Pluto turns direct and whenever we start working on how we regain our personal power, it is regaining the ability to not lose control of our emotions, to not let our emotions get the better of us. For other people, whenever we start to see how this is all going to work out, and if you're seeing temper tantrum emotional eruptions now, you need to be prepared when the other person gets potentially worse in January and February. March is in there too, but March has different reasons, and I don't want to get into that yet. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about. It's a lot to consider. There's a fragility to people, quite literally, a fragileness that keeps coming through in a multitude of ways. And when people are fragile, we do need to take notice and take care. We need to be aware of what we are saying and how we're saying it to them. We need to be aware of how we are perceiving things that might not be meant to be as a slight. We have to do these little checks within ourselves to make sure that we are not hitting levels of delusion, that we are not leading with our ego, that we are not jumping the gun in an unnecessary way. Because if you yourself are experiencing the inability to control your emotions, and I want to be clear about this, some of you, you have every reason to be stressed and frustrated and tense. I understand your mom, your dad, your kids, fighting over your kids, going through a divorce. I understand the nerve-wrackingness of that. But you're also not finding ways to disconnect and at least just focus on yourself. Finding that form of meditation to center your energy. And I know I giggle at meditation because some people only think meditation is sitting in still and putting your fingers together and saying a little sounds and mantras, and that is not the case. There are such things as physical manifestations and physical meditation. And sometimes the best way to clear your head is to get off your ass and go for a walk. It is to work out. It is to do those things that keep you feeling solid. Another tip, if you are struggling with your anxiety and panic attacks right now, you need to get a bag of warheads. That super tart, sour candy. Because as soon as your anxiety and your emotions start to spike, pop one of those in your mouth, and the nerve receptors will instantly rattle, and you will see a full shift down in the spike. That's another tip that you can just use with other people. Oh, frustrate. Okay, suck on this. Chew it. Take a bite. Do it. and then we'll talk. Warhead candies. There is so much coming through. And of all of the months for the rest of the year, arguably October is the best of them. And I've said before, I like October. I think October can be a very capable energy. But I also see that people are allowing the energy to get the best of them. And there is a struggle with how they're handling their emotions and how they're receiving certain things. The best way to get through this energy is to find those ways to keep yourself grounded, physically grounded. Meditation can be helpful. Active meditation, as well as sitting and chanting your mantras. There's different forms of meditation. I'm a big fan of shower meditation. Sit in the bottom of the shower, let the water beat on your head. Let's see how you feel in 20 minutes. It's worth the extra few dollars in your water bill. Trust me. Trust me on that. It doesn't have to be as bad as it has felt for some people. And I do anticipate with the turnarounds this weekend, this week, not just the weekend, this week, that there will be more spikes in the emotional responses. And it's really the behaviors of people not getting their way. But we will also see the people that are no longer willing to accept certain levels of tension or stress. And we will again start to move into certain challenges that will particularly come to a peak right at the end of this week and the start of next week. And all of this time frame will now be building to a full moon that'll happen next week. A full moon in Aries, squaring Mars. It's going to have a lot of tension in it too. There's a lot going on. All right, let's get into the week. Let's get into Monday. Now, the interesting thing about Monday is that there's not a whole lot of like direct transits or anything going on until the evening time. So I'm literally starting this at 10:30 at night. And that's because what we'll do here is that's whenever the moon in Sagittarius is going to go through its square with Saturn. The moon is in Sagittarius all day long. It actually goes into Sagittarius late Sunday night. So we're in the vibration. Now, the one thing about these few days while the moon is in Sagittarius is the moon is in Jupiter's sign. And again, Jupiter is stationing. Jupiter is about to turn retrograde. So what does Sagittarius rule in your chart? Because there can be something tied to that area that is a part of the turnaround or that will trigger the turnaround. Is it a money house for you? Is it a friend's house for you? Is it a family house for you? Are you a Sagittarius rising and are you starting to feel like you need to turn away from somebody or that your opinion about somebody else needs to change? Like, what does Sagittarius rule for you? Because that is going to give an inkling as to where the turnaround is going to be, given that by the time the moon leaves Sagittarius, Jupiter will be retrograde. Now, when the moon goes through the square where it's at Saturn, like it is right here, 10:30 at night, this is an energy of questioning, attention, talking about who's responsible for what, talking with the elder, getting an idea, getting some input. And we do have energies that are building all day on Monday. This is just the only exact transit. So what you can find is that Monday doesn't have a lot of things going on. You can be doing catch up with from what all happened last week and trying to put some things into perspective. Some people need some level of shift in support. There can be discussions about a shift that is going on all throughout the day. We have two things building up that are not exact on Monday. So we have Jupiter's trine with Mercury, again, not exact. And then Mars's trine with Venus, again, not exact. But since we do have these building energies, the moon square to Saturn can literally be discussing about the things that we feel can happen, that we feel need to be recognized, that we feel need to be supported, a responsibility we feel needs to be done, an activity with the elder that needs to be done whenever the moon goes through its square with Saturn. That goes the most exact between 9 and 11 p.m. on Monday, and it is the only direct transit. So again, we have all the build-up stuff, but nothing else direct besides this one. So Monday's going to be kind of interesting. I do feel like there's going to be a lot of catch up throughout the day on Monday. But now we're going to get into Tuesday. And Tuesday's got a lot more going on. One, it is the last full day of Jupiter being direct. By the time we get to the 9th, Jupiter will be retrograde. So this is the last full day of something. For some people, this will be a last day of something for them. Oh, between midnight and 2 a.m., the sun is going to go through a sextile with the moon. Not heavy energy. This is more like a check-in type thing. Little bits of exchange, a little bit of support, a little bit of awareness, nothing crazy going on. If there were harsh questions, late in that moon square Saturn on late Monday, then this can be some other level of check-in, doing some additional follow-up based off of if there was tension. But I don't even feel like there was tension in that energy. There didn't need to be tension. So more along the lines of we could be doing some level of support or awareness. And again, that awareness can be about what's about to change, what is starting to turn. Moving this along, between 4:53 a.m. Central Standard Time, went too far, and 5:37 a.m. Central Standard Time, Mars, 18 degrees, 38 minutes, is going to go through its exact trine with Venus. This can be very emotional. Both of them are in water signs, so that's an easy way to say it's going to be emotional. But I'm also looking at the extent of Venus is in her detriment in Scorpio. Venus is being hosted by Mars, and Mars is in his fall in Cancer. We're not doing that great. And there will be a lot of conversations about exactly that. I'm not doing that great. I'm not feeling well. I'm feeling kind of heavy. Talking to somebody else about the way something is bothering you, whether it's emotionally bothering you or physically bothering you. Some people, it could be supportive. Even if two people are in a funk, that doesn't mean that you can't be nice to another person. Be like, I like your hair. I like the way you did that this time. I like this thing that you did over here. I like that painting. I like this thing that you did. And it can be supportive. Trines are meant to be supportive. But I feel like it's like two people that are like feeling kind of crabby, trying to be helpful with one another. Like, do you want to just do like hoodies together? Mimosas at brunch is not a terrible idea. We can have an entire pitcher a piece, but it's fine. No judgment. But there is some level of emotional energy here. And then again, we still have the energy that speaks to a turnaround. Mars and Venus, their trine is going to go be in part of the energy all day. I'm just showing you when it's the most exact. Not all of us are going to be up at 5 something in the morning when this is going exact. There can be hidden desires that start to be spoken about at this moment too. Both Venus and Mars have their ties to sexual organs. So there can be the hidden desires coming through, but that hidden desire might not get received well given the rest of the energy. So let's talk about that next. Jupiter will go through its exact trine with Mercury between 7:20 and 7:34 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at 7:30. Here's Jupiter, 21 degrees and 20 minutes. Here is Mercury, 21 degrees and 20 minutes. Mercury is hosting Jupiter. Jupiter is about to turn retrograde. Less than 24 hours to turning retrograde. Somebody that speaks their desires, Venus trine Mars, actually it's the other way, Mars trine Venus, that whenever we talk about, we hear about those desires, As soon as we hear them, there's again some energy that it feels like hitting the brakes, like, oh, I didn't know you felt that way. I just kind of want to be friends with you. I thought we were just chilling. I thought we were just hanging out. You've been feeling some kind of way. I didn't know you felt this kind of way. Maybe we shouldn't hang out for a while because now I'm not comfortable. Now, is everybody going to actually say, maybe we shouldn't hang out right now because I'm not comfortable? No, but their energy will suddenly be something very, very different. And you can see when somebody's rigidness picks up. The reason I'm bringing this part up is because one, the moon is going through a quincunx with Mars. So there's something that can be happening here that we don't see eye to eye with the desire, with the action, with the goals of another person, because Mars can be a challenge in goals and things like this. Some of the desires that we speak about might not be sexual desires, but it could be that momentum desire. I wish to achieve something. But just because you want to go start your own business doesn't mean that your spouse, your sister, your mom, whoever is in support of that. They might not think it's a good idea. And there can be something here that, again, kind of triggers that turnaround energy, kind of triggers that awareness that somebody's not on the same page as you, that you're not on the same page as them. It's not meant to be heavy. It's not meant to be frustrating. But given the condition of Venus and Mars right now, there can be a lot of frustrations and there can be a lot of emotional responses that are coming through. Oh, I feel like they're going to get more this week than what we had last week. That's why I keep saying that. Now we're going to add an extra layer to that. See, the moon right now is going through the quincunx with Mars, but as we get later into the day, just by a couple hours, so more like lunchtime, let's get this to 12:30. The moon's going to do something very, very interesting. And this is going to go the most exact between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm giving a bigger window on this because there's more going on. The moon is going to go through its opposition with Jupiter while also going through the sextile with Mercury. Remember, Jupiter and Mercury are in a trine with one another. And now the moon is in the mix. So again, think of it this way. You tell somebody how you feel about them. They don't feel the same way. And what is the first thing they do? They call their girlfriend, they call their boyfriend, they call their homie, be like, holy crap, I didn't know so and so had a crush on me, but they just told me that they had feelings for me. What do I do? How do I handle this? What am I doing? What do I need to talk about? Well, I don't know. Do you feel the same way? Some people will, some people won't. There's a additional link in the receptiveness. And there can be something here that speaks to, again, no longer having the same level of support, no longer having the same level of care, no longer having the same level of understanding, because this Jupiter is less than 24 hours to going retrograde. So there is a turn in people's behavior, and you'll see the little tickers of it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after the retrograde starts. But there's little inklings all the way through showing this, that there is a turn in someone's behavior. We will not support certain people the same way. Sometimes the turn is us. But we're either going to have something that is making us push the brakes, or we're seeing somebody else pump the brakes. And when the moon getting in the mix, this is like telling that third person, like, you'll never believe what just happened. That type of thing. Oh, this awareness, though, with the moon's opposition to Jupiter, just going off of that right there, I do feel like there is something here that can still be a part of the trigger of the turnaround, but there is the extra layer. And somebody might be hesitant at first just because they've heard something that they didn't anticipate. That once they talk to the third party, once they talk to their best friend and get that opinion, talk to their crazy astrologer, people like me, and get that opinion, that helps solidify if they're feeling the right way or not, or it helps solidify if they're going to do something different or not, if they're going to cut you off or not. There is a turn in the energy. Okay. Oh, again, the moon's opposition to Jupiter, we feel it the most between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. because we also have that sextile with Mercury. A lot of the energy, whenever it comes to what's going on Tuesday, is all happening in the daytime hours. And then after the moon's opposition to Jupiter, it's not doing anything, at least not for the rest of the day. However, all of the rest of the day, Jupiter is stationing, Jupiter is spinning, and there can be people that have like a spinning like behavior of just like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I'm not gonna do this, I can't help this, I don't have the money for this, I am flipping, I am changing. Whatever that is for them, whatever the verbiage is going to be different for everybody. But I think that that's going to be something that is very clear throughout the rest of the evening. Now we're going to get into Wednesday, and everything that happens like right after midnight. So for the human effect is this could still be Tuesday night for a lot of people. For a lot more people, it's all going to be a part of Wednesday. It really, again, comes down to your time zones and how this is laying out for you. So put that human effect in line. I'm just showing you when everything goes the most exact. So between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. Wednesday morning, the moon is going to go through a square with Neptune. Both the moon and Neptune are in signs ruled by Jupiter. Yes, Neptune rules Pisces too. That's not the point. I'm looking at the condition of Jupiter when this transit is going on. And there could be something that is about lies, fraud, deception, negative impacts of Neptune. It can be about spirituality, beliefs, fantasy, delusional stuff on Neptune. I don't really call all that negative. Sometimes it's just kind of, it depends on the subject. But there can be a lot of confusion that kind of hits a point right here when the moon hits the square to Neptune. And it is while the moon is going through the square to Neptune that Jupiter turns retrograde. Jupiter turns retrograde at 2:04 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm going to just go ahead and bump this to 2:30. The moon's just past its exact square with Neptune. It's still in that vibration. There's still a questioning like energy. There's still an awareness type energy. There can be, again, catching somebody in a lie, catching some information that we didn't understand. We can be seeing the effects of something, the substance like effects, by the way, effects of something. We can be seeing the delulu of someone. And as soon as we see like this peak action, Jupiter retrograde starts. It's the final twinge, it's the final tug, it's the final click of the turnaround. I'm not with this anymore. I don't feel the same way anymore. I don't support this anymore. I'm not a part of this anymore. Jupiter is now retrograde. So his energy is very, very different from here forward. And this is where he's going to be. This is how he's going to be until February. So, hello, Jupiter retrograde. Not meant to be a heavy energy. It just means that where we have certain areas we are trying to expand, the expansion will not work the same way. Okay. After this, there's not a whole lot going on except for one other thing, and that is at 4:39 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go into Capricorn. So now I got this at 5:30. Once the moon goes into Capricorn, there is like a solemn energy. It's sobering. We just had some wave of confusion, some things that we didn't understand. We've had the last few days of something to keep coming up, some kind of hidden desire that left us feeling confused, that left us feeling raw, that left us feeling kind of weird. And then all of a sudden the moon goes into Capricorn. And I mean, it is sobering. And for the next few days, now that the moon is in Capricorn, which will be helpful for some people, there is this need to be productive. You need a distraction. Like that's what I mean by there's a need to be productive once the moon goes into Capricorn. I need to put my mind somewhere else. I need to go focus somewhere else. I need to do this other thing. I don't need to worry about you. I need to worry about me. I need to be more responsible, at least for the moment in my head. And that could be the other thing that we need is to recognize the shift in responsibility. Jupiter just turned retrograde. And again, Jupiter is the doctor, the guru, the teacher for many, many people. And what can come through in this sobering moment is like, oh, I don't have the same doctor. I don't have the same belief in my teacher. I don't feel the same level of support and care. And that again can have a sobering effect of coming to terms with a shift in that responsibility. For some of you, you have to start accepting a different kind of responsibility. For some of you, you have to recognize the responsibility that you have put on yourself that you should never have taken on. And the moon going through Capricorn will have this internalized energy that either makes us feel very productive or it's going to make us hold a mirror to ourselves. Like it's a very internalized energy that I was picking up on. Can you do physical things? Absolutely. If you need to physically clean the house, that's being productive. You need to go outside and do something, that is being productive. Go work on the car. Go get your tasks done. That's a good thing to do on Wednesday while the moon is in Capricorn. And I'm looking forward to the moon in Capricorn, given everything else that's going on, because I feel like there needs to be this energy of weightedness and responsibleness, just to be clear. Oh, okay. As for the rest of Wednesday, there ain't a whole lot going on. We're actually moving into Thursday. So let's get into the 10th. And the moon's going to be in Capricorn all day long. The first transit actually doesn't perfect until the early morning time. And it's a simple one. It's the moon's sextile to Saturn. So this goes the most exact between 5 and 7 a.m. Here's the moon in Capricorn, 13 degrees, 21 minutes. Here's Saturn, 13 degrees, 46 minutes. You can kind of see it starting to build right here. This is the moon in Saturn's sign. Saturn is moving towards the moon. So we have some kind of energy about coming together, of acceptance. Again, we're moving towards each other. So there's a receptiveness. Oh, yeah, I understand why you feel that way. I understand why you would have thought that way. In my experience, I would have done it this way. And there is just reception in the energy, not heavy at all. We have other things going to go on throughout the day and going into the weekend. And there is this growing energy all throughout the week. Remember, we keep feeling a growth that's going to be happening all throughout the week. I kind of talked about it in the intro. I'm talking about it again now. The reason I'm bringing that up is because with the moon being in that sextile to Saturn, it can also bring something to the center of our mind that we have something coming through. There is starting an energy that is starting to come more to the forefront. And a lot of that has to do with the building square between Mars and the sun. This is going to continue to build all week. We also are going to start to feel the trine between Jupiter and the sun. So there are going to be some tense like energies that just you start to feel the friction in the air. And I feel like as we get into the 10th and the 11th, that friction building is going to be a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Okay. Okay. Now in the afternoon, between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m., so I'm going to get this to 2:30, we go through our first quarter moon. So here's the sun, 17 degrees. Here is the moon. And what's interesting is that right as the moon starts to go through that buildup of the first quarter moon, and there can be a buildup. Again, we have buildup starting to fill the air. Not only are we going through the first quarter moon, but we also start to deal with the first, this new opposition of the moon with Mars. You can see that here. That's also building. There can be some tensions. There can be some arguments. There can be some outbursts. One person is more than likely holding another person more accountable. We have some type of direction, some type of desire. And once we start to delegate and give that out, it's like the other person's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to deal with this. Where one side is being very stoic and calm and chill. The other side is like a volcano of, no, leave me alone. I don't want to do that. I need an adult, but I need a different adult than you. I don't want you to be my adult right now because I don't want to be an adult. I need another adult, that type of thing. Now, the moon's opposition to Mars, it actually goes more exact a little bit after the first quarter moon. The first quarter moons usually start to instigate the buildup of the upcoming full moon, What's interesting though is the fact that the upcoming full moon is going to be ruled by Mars. So the Mars energy is going to be there all throughout the afternoon. And it is another part of the buildup of what we're dealing with over the course of this week and next week. So there are tensions, there are challenges, there are certain actions that are starting to build, there are certain reactions that are starting to build based off of this energy. Okay. The moon's opposition to Mars goes exact between 4:30 and 6:30 p.m. So here's the moon 1956. Here is Mars 1951. You can see we're just past the exact. Do not be surprised again by those emotional reactions that people start to deal with. But it's not always going to be the emotional reactions. Some people are very, very motivated in this energy to get something accomplished, to take care of something. And that accomplishment in the taking care, it is literally about care. You got to think Cancer is a nurturing sign. It's emotional, it's nurturing. But so whenever we start to take care of our desires of, I want to do this, I want to be able to get this, there is still an element of care, even in the accomplishment. So I go into the mindset of like building a house. There's an accomplishment, but that final product is going to be a form of steady, sturdy support that equals protection, because a home is going to protect you from the elements. So for some people, this is going to be tension. For other people, this is going to be a drive and a determination, and there will be some type of goal setting that can also be in the buildup of energy, just to be clear. Not everybody is an emotional roller coaster. There just tends to be more than most right now. Okay. We have one other transit to Thursday, and that's going to go the most exact between 8 and 10:30 p.m. So I got this at 8:30, so we're right at the start of it. And that is Venus, 21 degrees, 49 minutes, going through a sextile with the moon. This adds one extra layer to the fact that Venus is, one, being hosted by Mars, but we're also looking at the fact that Venus is being hosted by Pluto. And we are now within a few hours of Pluto turning direct. It's not happening on the 10th. It happens on the 11th, just after the midnight time frame. No, wait. I'm sorry. Wrong time. It's going to happen on the 11th in the evening time frame. But we're within 24 hours now of that turnaround with Pluto. So what I was picking up on with this one right here is Venus is getting an understanding that can go either way. It is either more understanding, like Mars and its emotional temperament, the challenge and the drive that is starting to set in with Mars, and the building tension that's in the air. But also there is that understanding of Pluto and the power struggle that needs to come to a close, the turnaround that keeps triggering that old wound of trauma, that old wound of abuse, that old little inkling that needs to be turned around. And whenever Venus goes through the sextile with the moon, this can go either way. It can either be talking about all of the emotional responses of Mars, all of the emotions that need to be understood, but it can also be talking about where we need to overcome something. And that speaks to the conditions of what's going on with the hosts. Okay. Again, this transit goes the most exact between 8 and 10:30 p.m. So that kind of wraps us up for the evening. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the 11th. And the moon is going to be in Capricorn all night. It'll go into Aquarius midday. First things first, though, the moon is going to go through a square from Mercury. Now, this goes the most exact between 3:30 and 6 a.m. Central Standard Time. So we have Mercury at 26 degrees. Here's the moon at 26 degrees. There, it's almost exact right here. So this can be an idea. This can be a lot of mental energy. We've got so many things that are kind of shifting and building, and we have new things that will pop up throughout the week that sometimes our minds just get very heavy and busy and they won't turn off. We keep going over that same conversation, those same events, playing them over in our head over and over again. But this one right here can add additional layers of perspective but it can also lead to some tension and some frustration. We have other buildups in the air that speak to levels of buildups and frustration. Just to be clear, Mercury is going to square the moon between 3:30 and 6:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. At the same time, the moon will start to go through a trine with Uranus. Now, this felt more between 4:30 and 6:30 a.m., so I'm actually leaving it right where it's at. While Mercury is going through the square with the moon is going to start its trine with Uranus. That arguing, air quotations on arguing, the questioning, the idea, the overrunning of the mind can also have some additional layer that comes through that has an unexpected connection, an unexpected extra that we aren't anticipating in the moment as the moon goes through its trine with Uranus. So don't be surprised when we get into Friday morning and we get some unexpected things. But this unexpected things is also got layers to it in the sense of like, we're hearing something unexpectedly that we didn't even know was an issue, that we didn't know was a problem, that wasn't even on our radar. Why do I say that? All day on the 11th, while Mercury is at this 26-degree mark, it is going through a quincunx with Uranus. They are not seeing eye to eye. In some ways, we can be hearing about somebody else's idea and immediately being very rigid about it. And that rigidness from you or from that other person is the unexpected thing because you didn't anticipate hearing about said person. Whoever told you didn't anticipate that you had an issue. Or you hear about it and you immediately go, that's the dumbest idea I have ever heard. Why are we doing this? No, it's a terrible idea. Don't do that. But that speaks to the volume of like, we have a buildup of tension, and not everybody is going to be okay with the situations at play. Not everybody is going to be seeing eye to eye as we go through parts of the week. Some people will have great ideas that other people will not receive well. And this is one layer to that. Okay. Keep bumping this into the morning between 7 and 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at 8:30. The moon is going to go through a sextile with Neptune, not heavy energy, but it can have a little bit of an element of confusion or hearing about something that we didn't know about, experience the effects of something that we weren't anticipating, that we weren't imagining, or it is something about the imagination. It is something that kind of captures our attention for a moment. And it's like you have to work through something and look through something that is meant to offer inspiration. So I mean this in the sense of like going through a design book, trying to get ideas, going through your Pinterest page, trying to get an idea, but not knowing exactly what you want. So it's like searching. This is not meant to be heavy, but given some of the other energies at hand, you could be hearing about why somebody's not seeing eye to eye with another person, and it just not make sense to you. And it's just like utter confusion. I'm like, what? I don't even know why you feel that way. I don't even know where that's coming from. That's just so crazy to me. But given we have the buildup of tension in other areas, there are going to be things about part of this week that just do not make sense. It's not meant to make sense to everybody because some of the things that are going on with other people, that's not your problem, not your pig, not your farm. Leave it alone. Okay, moving this along. The moon is going to go through a conjunction with Pluto between 10 a.m. and noon. So I'm going to bump this a few more hours. Now, this is a stationing Pluto, hours before the retrograde ends. The meeting of the moon and Pluto, given everything else that's going on, oh, this can be tense. And this can be infuriating. And this can be triggering. And I do anticipate triggering on this day because Pluto is about to turn direct. So we need a trigger in a lot of ways. We need that final little note of, oh no, 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 we're not doing this. I'm not playing this game with you. I'm sick of your crap. I'm not going to do this anymore. You want to do this? Fine. Talk to the lawyers where we'll take it to court. I don't really care. You want to play ball? I'm going to play harder ball. I'm going to swing harder and you're going to feel it in more than one place whenever it hits you. Type of triggering when the moon hits the conjunction to Pluto. Now, for some people, it's not with you and another person. This will be internal. Sometimes it's internal stuff. And then whenever we feel that internal trigger, when the moon hits that conjunction to Pluto, first there can be waves of just fear that do not make sense. And do not let that fear grab you. Because if you do, it's going to hurt a little bit more. But really, it's supposed to be an awareness of this is what I have to change. This is where I need to shift my focus. This is what I need to let go of. This is not going to control me anymore. I'm over it. I am over it. The negative forms of Pluto are trauma, abuse, power struggles, having some form of control taken from you, people having luring things over you, the dark things over you. But the positive side of Pluto is Phoenix energy. And we're in the process of turning something around in the building tension. And again, there can be something in this day, in this energy, in this conjunction, in this trigger, and in the days following this conjunction and this trigger of speaking to this is how you take your power back. This is how you end this form of control, then control that that other person has over you. And there can be an energy that starts to build after this of standing up for oneself. And that I like. And I would like for more people to feel that than the other. So let's be clear about that. Oh, the conjunction between the moon and Pluto goes the most exact between 10 a.m. and noon. At 11:32 a.m., so I'm just going to bump this to 12:30. The moon is going to go into Aquarius. The moon is now in Uranus's sign. And by the time the moon goes into Aquarius, there is going to be something that is a much more understood, known energy that's going to start to set in. And there can be some stubbornness that starts to set in with a lot of people. But there is just something that is very clear and factual about as the moon is in Aquarius. And it's going to be there all throughout the rest of the day on the 11th. Now it's 7:31 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this 7:30. Pluto is retrograde. I bumped this 1 hour, even though it just needs to be 1 minute, but I'm not bumping it a minute. Okay. Pluto is now direct. We are turning something around on Friday. Where we have had frustrations in the past, we are not letting them control us anymore. We are overcoming and we are taking back certain power and no longer letting a past dynamic, a past situation, a past trauma hold us down anymore. Pluto is direct. And for the next 5 weeks, Pluto will be wrapping up its business in Capricorn. And then we are done for this lifetime. We're done with Pluto and Capricorn. Okay. Yeah. Oh, let's move this along. Let's get into Saturday. Let's get into the 12th. There is not a whole lot to Saturday, but we still have the buildups of the other energy. We now are in our first full day of Pluto being direct. So a lot of this energy can just be making some decisions that have a long-term effect on that internalized energy. As we go through the day, there's no direct transits until we get into the evening time. And I do mean late into the evening time. So we're just going to go ahead and bump this into that time span and we'll talk about it. Between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. at night, we go through a trine between the sun, 20 degrees, and the moon. Simultaneously, go ahead and bump this to 11:30, while the sun moon trine is going on, the moon is starting its trine with Jupiter. And when we go through the midnight hour of late Saturday going into Sunday, we get this grand trine effect in the air signs. Flow, 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 ideas, 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 change, 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 hope, 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 healing, healing, healing. Jupiter is involved, so I'm including healing. But there can be epiphanies that come through, sound ideas that come through, these waves of thoughts that we need to work through and focus on. And there is a lot to focus on, and there is a lot of mental energy whenever it comes to this part of the evening. Not only do we have that grand trine effect, but we still have that building energy of Mars to the sun. And even though the Mars isn't playing a direct hand in the exactness, it's still really close. So, whatever determination, whatever challenge, whatever argument, whatever frustration is building between Mars and the sun of where we need to take steps forward, there can be a lot of mental focus and ideas. This can feel rather light, but we can start talking about where we want to make a change for long-term energy, for how we are going to move forward next. And you can be making some very big, pronounced ideas in this moment with some strange hopefulness in mind that I'm going to play devil's advocate again. They might not stick for the long term, but they at least are going to feel good and right for now. So whatever is starting to come into mind, whatever we're talking about, whatever we're socializing about, we are making a decision of changes, of turning something around. And again, the hope is going to be for long term because all the air signs are there. And the moon is in Aquarius. So the moon is in the fixed sign. So we want things to last for a long time. All right. Now we're going to get into Sunday. And there's a lot to Sunday. Let's be clear about that. There is a lot to Sunday. Oh, the trine between the moon and Jupiter carries us into Sunday. So I want to be clear about that part. That goes the most exact between 11:30 p.m. and 1:30 a.m. on Sunday. So a part of what we are dealing with in the start of Sunday is that grand trine energy. So the conversations of Saturday can literally instigate the things that we start to deal with on Sunday. I want to be absolutely clear about that. Okay, bump this a few more hours, and we're going to get to about 5:30. Venus is going to go through a square with the moon. The appearance of something, the taste of something, the aesthetic of something needs to be looked at. It is being used in some way, discussed in some way. This part doesn't feel very, very heavy. There can be the push from the feminine. There can be tension between moms and daughters, just to be clear. But there can also be adventures between moms and daughters. It doesn't have to be crazy. Let's be fair about that part. But we do have, again, a buildup of other tension that can be in the air that starts to come through that has a lot of frustration there. But this particular energy is all feminine. So we can be talking about our emotions, the aesthetic, the appeal, and it can be a part of the conversation of what we're going to be doing on Sunday morning. And given that the next thing is going to happen is the moon is going to hit this square to Uranus, hear me out on this one. This lightens the load quite a bit. We feel this the most exact between 8:30 and 10:30 in the morning. I look at this energy like going garage sailing or going junkin. One of my adopted moms, that's what she calls going to all like the flea markets and stuff. She calls it going junkin. We want to go look at things, old things, experienced things, and we're judging the aesthetic value while also the functioning value. And this is a great morning for like hidden finds, like those unexpected finds, that unexpected little treat at the end. that type of thing. Like you go looking for nothing at all and you come home with like the coolest new projects or the coolest new pieces for your house or whatever. Unexpected energy. There can be unexpected things. That's a part of Sunday. This is one vibration as to why. Okay. As we keep going through the morning, I'm actually not even going to move this. The other thing that's going on whenever the moon hits that square to Uranus is Mercury is going through its square with Pluto. Now, this goes the most exact between 8:55 and 9:09 a.m. Pluto is newly direct. On top of the fact that we could be going out and, again, junking, looking through stuff and trying to find some type of finds, we can also be having some very serious conversations with our mom, with our family member, with our best friend, with our sister. And the way that we're having this serious conversation is through adapting environment by like going out. So this is going to be my continuous example. You're going out junking. You're looking at all these cool little things. But as soon as you're done talking about how this old skate would be like a really cool piece on a this or that, this old trunk could be a really cool table. As soon as you're done talking about that trunk, you're also having the other hard conversation of, I think I want a divorce. I think I'm going to leave my husband. I think I need to make a plan to leave. I think I need to make a plan to change something. I need to end something. Why do I say end? Mercury is having its final square to Pluto while Pluto's in Capricorn. It's the final square because they will not have any more squares in this area of the sky. Again, Pluto's about to go into Aquarius. He's going to be there for 20 years. This will not be this way anymore. And any future squares are going to be in a whole different sign. So this is the final square. And it's happening at 29 degrees. So it's at the end of a sign. End, endings, closing, letting go, releasing. What's interesting about this square between Mercury and Pluto is the fact that, again, Pluto rules Scorpio. And as soon as this square perfects and ends, Mercury is going to go into Scorpio. It's going into Pluto's sign. So we have this questioning, this triggering of how we want to change. We are delivering news about where we've been struggling while still playing with all the junk and stuff. Look at this old comic book collection. Oh my gosh, I used to have comics, but then my mom sold them all. Like, here's that trigger of trauma. I don't want to be that kind of parent. I don't want to do these kinds of things. And there can be this conversation, this tension, because there is tension still in the air, this vibration of I'm not going to do this anymore. And however this is manifesting for you, we now know what's about to become our focus after the Mercury-Pluto square, because Mercury rules our logical mind. Mercury hosting Jupiter that just turned direct or just turned retrograde this week. Pluto turned direct. Mercury is squaring Pluto that just turned direct, but Jupiter's hosting Jupiter that has just turned retrograde. We are aware of shifts and changes, and we're tired. We're frustrated. We're done with something. We're done with the idea of something. And we're looking at a change. Now, that change being expressed to somebody else can be met unexpectedly, like, oh, but you're serious about it. Okay. Will you grab that other end of this dresser and we'll keep talking as we carry this stuff over? We've all been in this situation, having the heavy conversation while helping do something else. And sometimes that is the necessary way to do it. Okay, still going. The most exact square, 8:55 to 9:09. Mercury will actually enter Scorpio at 2:24. And this takes me to the next little part. So this takes me to the afternoon. I want to go ahead and take this to 2:30. Oh, Mercury will be building a trine with the moon as it changes signs. And it will not go exact until the moon moves into Scorpio. I'm not Scorpio, moves into Pisces. Sorry. Mercury moved into Scorpio. The moon's moving into Pisces. Hear me out. Logic, logic, logic. Talking, talking, talking. Communication, communication, communication. Ending a power struggle. Challenge, challenge, challenge. Tension, tension, tension. And now we move into emotions. Mercury is now in Scorpio. It goes through the trine with the moon. These two are building the trine as they're changing signs. So we're building to some type of new emotional change. Some of the conversations that can be getting had, some of the challenges that can be coming through can speak to emotions coming to the surface even more. And I want to be clear, at this moment, there's a lot of water that suddenly has now started. Midday on the 13th. Venus and Mercury are in Scorpio. Mars is in Cancer. Neptune, Saturn, and the moon are in Pisces. That's a lot of water. Water, 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 water. That's a lot of emotions. That's a lot of healing. That's a lot of cleansing. That's a lot of flow, water, flow. That's a lot of movement and reactions. And we're not done with the buildup. Now, the Mercury moon trine, there is an understanding here. There's an understanding why something just needed to come to a close. And now Mercury is focused in this other area. There is an understanding that we have to work through the old wounds, work through the old trauma, and talk about them and get them off of our chest. And again, no longer allow for these areas in our life to hold us back. Whether that is in an actual situation or it's the repressed memories, there's something that's been holding us back. And now our logical mind is more focused on how we work through the power struggle, how we work through what's been holding us back. Because for the next 5 weeks, again, because Pluto will be here for another 5 weeks, we have to get over the power struggle. But we're not done. Let's keep going. Oh, there's so much to Sunday. Let's just keep it going. Oh, we're going to get into the evening time, and we got 2 things going on. One goes exact on the 13th. The other goes exact on the 14th. So be clear about this. It's still here. And for some people, what I explain next will be all the 12th and the 13th. For other people, it'll be all the 14th and 15th. For a lot of people, it's going to be the whole few days. And we're not even building up to the full moon yet. The full moon's a few days away. Ugh. Okay. Okay. All throughout the day, we have the trine between Jupiter and the sun building up. Jupiter is hosting the moon, Saturn, and Neptune. Neptune and Saturn are retrograde. The moon just entered in. We have a new emotional response, a new thing coming through, while also recognizing we don't support something the same way because Jupiter is retrograde. Jupiter and the sun are in 2 different directions. Now, Jupiter trine the sun should have an indication of luck. But for a lot of people, luck is turning. Luck has turned. It has changed hands. And there is an adjustment. The care, the nurturing has changed hands. The teachings, the lessons, something is turning in the energy. And we can feel it. Feel it. Add a layer to that. As Jupiter enters exact trine with the sun, which is felt the most exact between 10:31 and 10:55 p.m., I got it at 10:30, simultaneously, Mars is entering its exact square with the sun. I'm going to talk about Mars and Jupiter here in a minute at the closing, just to be clear about this. And it'll be something I'll start to say a lot more moving forward. This exact square is on the 14th, at least for me. For some of you, based off time zones, this is all the 13th, this is all the 14th, and I know that. I'm giving you the most exact as best I can, and I'm giving you the waves of the human effect. But there is a challenge, a tension, a frustration. There is a build up to the energy to this point that requires some type of emotional processing in more than one way. And a lot of the emotional processing, one person can be emotional while the other person is being indecisive, while the other person is more afraid of the aesthetic of something, of how something would appear. Because sometimes we get more focused on the appearance of how something is going to be perceived versus the actual situation at hand. And if you're stuck on appearance, well, I want this to look this way. And you over here, we have somebody stuck on, I want to feel good about my life. And these two can't get their crap on the same page. Tension, frustration, and arguments. That will be a very key part of the energy as we get towards the end of the week. But just as much as there can be tension and arguments, there can also be a whole different thing here. And that is the emotional validation that a challenge is being recognized, is being moved towards, is being understood. Because Mars is in the higher authority to the sun. I will achieve this. I will accomplish this. I will do this. I will take care of this. I will build this. And that other side might not understand the depth of what is being proclaimed. And again, we're in an energy where there are levels, the things that we are proclaiming, the energy that is vibrating, the shifts in our awareness that are coming through in some way, shape, or form, we come back to in the springtime. Now I want to talk about Mars and Jupiter, because I said I would talk about this more in the closing. When it comes to Mars and Jupiter, I have felt that since those two planets have both now made conjunctions to Uranus, it's a weird thing, but it's the truth. Jupiter's Uranus conjunction was in April. Mars's Uranus conjunction was in mid-July. Some of y'all might remember mid-July. That week was a total vibration change. And I said that then. I'm reminding you people what I said then. That was like the middle of the month. There was a vibration shift that week. What I have felt since those two planets hit a conjunction to Uranus is they've been on the same page, especially in mid-August when we actually had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction squaring Saturn. What's interesting to me is that even though Jupiter just turned retrograde, it coincides with Mars entering shadow. When Jupiter hits a certain point in the sky come December, that will be when Mars turns retrograde, specifically the point where he had that conjunction with Mars. Mars and Jupiter in mid-August had a 16-degree conjunction in Gemini. When Mars turns retrograde later, Jupiter will be back at the 16 degrees. When Mars finally leaves shadow next spring, will be when Jupiter leaves shadow. That's not a joke. There's a lot of the energy that is very much correlated to Jupiter and Mars simultaneously. And what I look at in their vibration is that they're going to both have energies tied to the North Node. Now, right now, Mars is hosting the North Node. But come springtime, specifically January, the North Node is going to move into Pisces. It's going to go into Jupiter's sign. And these two have odd little inklings that speak to one another in the pattern, which tells me that a lot of the things that have come through since the last Mercury retrograde have been very, very necessary to prepare us for that next eclipse axis. It's a long time coming, and I know that. There may be more reasons why I say that as we continue. But a lot of the action, the desires, the motivations, the challenges, the determination, the steps forward that must be taken requires some additional influence from Jupiter. Requires healing, it requires expansion, it requires prosperity, growth, and abundance. Our focus needs to be in this area, but for a different reason. And we must be careful in the things that we are doing, in the actions that we are taking. And a lot of people, as they continue this week, the way that they are responding is going to be full floods of emotional reactions. And I'll be honest, this week has much more emotional tension to it than last week. But even last week, people did not have control of their emotions. They let the energy grab them. And their responses and the way things came out did not match the situations. It did not match the vibration. Okay, I'm gonna leave now. Don't leave. Oh my God. Are you 5? It's one thing whenever it's your niece or your nephew that is 5 or 6 and you're like their favorite person and they don't want you to leave. That's one response. They can get over those things. It's just they don't want to let go. But for grown adults to respond like a 5-year-old, it's mind-boggling. We have something that is turning. And where we've had an area of fear, we do need to make efforts to overcome that fear. And there will be a lot of focus as to what is necessary to work through that. So that way we can finally experience the full effects, the full knowledge, the full knowing of what Pluto and Aquarius is going to be. We have unfinished business. We've had it for a while, but now the weightedness of that is not going to remain the same. And I do feel like parts of the drive and the determination that can set in for a lot of people as we enter that square between Mars and the sun, that trine between Jupiter and the sun, those things that go exact late on the 13th, early on the 14th, so tightly together. That will be the push, the internal push, that drive and that determination to do better, to achieve more, to accomplish as much as we need to release. And there is an emotional release that needs to be had, but there are healthy ways to do it. And I think people are still struggling with that. Those little things that keep bubbling to the surface. And we will have more of it. We're not done. Mars does not leave Cancer this go round until the first few days of November. So we got some weeks to go. But we also have other things that are setting in. The determination, the drive. And there will be challenge that can be met for some people, especially those that are handling this energy better. The challenge is how we are going to level up from here, how we are going to shift our focus from here. And many people are going to shift their focus throughout the rest of the month, especially as we get into the 1st of November. I know that's weeks away. But Mars's square with the sun can set in what our focus will be during that time, the opportunity that will come through at that time. And we have a hopefulness that will come then. But there is a very interesting energy that is leading us into November and December. And for some people, that is going to be a very eye-opening energy that we're moving towards. For other people, it is going to be a very exposing energy. And that's a different conversation. And as we get closer to that, It'll make more sense. We're laying groundwork for a lot of things right now. And I've been saying that for a while. I will continue to say that because we are. We're having certain discussions with certain people, where we're talking with certain people about things that we've not thought of before, that we've not dealt with before. And we have this desire to overcome something and to heal things and to fix things. And there is this awareness of those old wounds that need to be worked through. But we have to actually pay attention to the root of the situations and not just the topical things that keep setting us off. Getting down to the root. Pluto is in an earth sign. The root of the matter, the root of your trauma response, the root of your emotional turmoil, the root of the problem. We need to understand it. We need to pull it so we can finally heal those wounds. Okay. It's going to be an interesting week. It's going to be an intense week, especially as the week continues to build. There's going to be a lot of intensity. There's going to be a lot of frustration, and that frustration can even take us into the week following. I'm being clear about that. All right. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I'll talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.